Hi everybody, welcome back to Calls to the Bar podcast. This is my first in-person podcast. I'm super happy and honoured to be joined by Abigail Taylor, who is a criminal defence paralegal with 11 years of experience. I circulated a little post on the Instagram pages and the LinkedIn, giving a brief description of Abigail and all of her experience that she's going to bring to this episode. No pressure. And yeah, I'm just really happy. Thank you so much for joining me, Abby.
Thanks for having me.
You're most welcome. So, criminal defence paralegal at McKeegan Co Solicitors.
Yes.
And you have got, as I've just said, 11 years of experience, and you are heading all of the Crown Court cases in the department for your firm.
Yeah.
And you have done for how long?
Quite a substantial amount of time now.
Do you feel
Probably
confident with it as well?
Majority of my time.
Yeah.
I do, yeah. At first I didn't, obviously, but now I do. It's
And
great fun.
what's interesting as well is you actually want to pursue a career as a solicitor at one point.
Did
you always want to do crime?
Yes.
So
from
you've always
being young.
So you've always had a passion for crime as well.
Yeah, legally blonde, that's my inspiration.
So what about your education history then? What's your education experience? Did you do A levels or?
So obviously I left school, GCSEs. I went to sixth form for around a year. Didn't particularly enjoy sixth form. And that's at the stage when I was looking at jobs in this sort of field. And then came across an apprenticeship in a firm that solely dealt with criminal law. And then I applied, and then yeah, that's where it all started.
Do you think your passion for crime became a lot stronger the minute you started working in it? Did you always have this passion for crime, and then when you worked in it, you were like, it consolidated that?
Well, I've always been interested in it from being a young age. However, when I first started, I hated it.
Really?
I think because the firm that I started in was a very small firm.
Right.
Sole practitioner. It was very small.
Wow.
So you kind of got thrown in the deep end.
Wow.
So at first I was like, oh my goodness. Like it was like literally so much that I wasn't expecting. I don't know what I was expecting. And obviously I was only just turned 18, so I was still quite young.
Wow.
And I was like, on the phone to my like apprenticeship assessor person. I was like, I don't like this. I want to go work in a vet. I want to go work with dogs. She was like, stick it out, Abby, stick it out. And then after a few months, I was like, oh no, I love this. But when you're thrown in the deep end, it's quite scary and intense. But yeah, I love it.
And what you've just said there, you're right, aren't you? It's a public role, so it's dealing with people's lives, and it must have been so
a lot of pressure.
Yeah, pressurized environment, nerve-wracking as well, especially at 18. No disrespect to anybody at 18, but I certainly didn't have the life experiences that I've got now at 23 to what I had at 18. I was nowhere near the same. I'm not the same person. Of course, you're not the same person because you develop through your own experiences. But of course, then dealing with such serious cases, because and this would be interesting to get your opinion on it. In my opinion, it doesn't matter how small the case is, from your lower level stuff, as they say, up to the murders, there's still victims and there's still people affected, and the defendants are still, it's people's lives still. So it must have been like navigating that and trying to support clients must have been quite a challenge.
Yeah, because to some people it could be a low level shop theft or a low level assault, but to the client, it's big for them. It's a big deal for them. It's their life. It's their liberty at risk, essentially. So it might not be important to others, but it's always incredibly important to them.
Of course. And just touching off the back of what you said about how you were thrown into the deep end, on reflection now, looking back, do you think that was probably quite beneficial for you to have been thrown in?
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, at the time I hated it, but now I'm like, oh, that paid off, because if you worked in a bigger firm, you may, I don't know, but you may be put into a role where you're quite limited as to what you're doing, and then it may take a while for you to work up to have more responsibility.
Yeah.
But for me, being thrown in the deep end paid off, and I thought it was quite beneficial, to be quite honest.
And what skills have you learned have you taken through your experience now and the different roles that you've got now? What skills did you learn from being thrown in the deep end at that age in your first position?
I think in crime, things can go from 0 to 100 very quickly.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Do you often find, like what you've just said there about how it can go from 0 to 100 quite quickly, that sometimes you don't always have control over a case in crime because it can go left and right, can't it? Like trials can change last minute, statements and witnesses and lots of different things can go awry quite quickly. So did you find that navigating, thinking on your feet fast and preparing for those obstacles, you've got those really in your first position as a paralegal?
Yeah, 100%. And you can have your day planned out like an easy day, and then next thing you know, you have a million and one things to do. You hear that everywhere, and then things change, and things spanners can be thrown in the works, and then like a lot of people, I think if you've got a plan set out for your day, routine, and this is what I'm doing, this is what's going to happen, and then spanners get thrown in, and you're like, whoa.
I think as well, if people have got a bit of OCD, I certainly have. Like my organisation is like, I like everything to be like as extreme as like my laundry needs to be done at 11 a.m.
Yeah.
Like, you know, and I've got
Plan it in your head.
I've got like a ticky box in my notes where I'm like, laundry's done, like, and it's like my list is like very, very chronological and on like timings and stuff. So I think, but I mean, one of the questions we're asking now is actually trying to understand that you can't really control every aspect of a live case, but that organisation is still imperative.
Oh, yeah.
Because on the contrary to what you've just said, a lot of us are advised in my position that you need to have, you know, organisation skills and time management skills, and you need to be able to diarise your way through life and make sure your commitments are set. But actually looking at that, you also need to be flexible as well and fluid, because you can't navigate every part of a trial the way or a case the way you might want to. So what advice would you give to young students and barristers, aspiring barristers that want to be able to keep their organisation and time skills, but that they also need to learn to be fluid? What would you say to them if they when navigating a case that goes left? How do you still ensure that you're like up to date with it all, but that you can go through it quite calmly and not panic so much? What do you do if a case goes left?
Well, I'm not gonna lie, sometimes the stress and the panic, I think with everyone, no matter how long you've worked in a job, it can stress you out, and panic you. But I think it's just, I don't really know. I think in time you just learn to manage it.
Yeah. And maybe just having like a step-to-step protocol after it's gone left. So like, you know, if it's gone a little bit awry, thinking, right, well, what's my next step to do? And then you're still kind of feeding into that organisational skills and making sure that you're up to date with everything. Because I can imagine a lot of people must panic. And if you panic, you can kind of like lose your sense of direction.
Yeah, especially those who are like new to the job or new to the bar, etc. And it can be quite panicky when things take a turn or go a bit left, and you know, it's in the day no one's gonna die. It's fine.
Yeah, exactly.
It's fine. It'll all work itself out.
Yeah,
That's the worst advice, but you know, I think you just run on adrenaline. You have to power through.
Yeah, of course.
And you find your feet, and everyone has different coping mechanisms.
Yeah, that's true. And also, I guess advice that you probably what I'm taking from you in terms of advice would be that when it does go a little bit upside down, probably lean on people, get a bit of advice, communicate, and try and navigate it as a group rather than individually if you can.
Exactly, because you know the people you work with at the bar or the people you work with in your team within the firm, you know, I mean, me personally, I have good relationships with everybody. So even if something goes pear-shaped at court, you know, and you're really stressed, even just like ringing one of my colleagues and just having like a 10-minute rant. Or like getting some advice. You know, or speaking to counsel. And, you know, I think if you've got good relationships with people and you know them well, and it can help settle you, and just sometimes you just need to get it all off your chest and then power on. It's fine.
Definitely. That's some great advice there. Thank you. So in terms of then, well, actually, in terms of now, if a case goes wrong,
My Wednesdays.
what I'm not involved. I'm joking. I definitely am involved, but I'm not drinking on the job as the host. Now then, if something was looking back on past experiences and reflecting, what would you say that you maybe used to do that you wouldn't do now? So if something went wrong, would you just go into like full-blown panic mode and like kind of like crash, melt and burn? Versus now, do you take a very different approach? Like, have you seen that like that development in yourself?
I think when I first started, I had a severe lack of confidence.
Right.
I think with being so young, and a lot of people who come into this profession, not all, but a lot do start quite young.
Yeah.
And you do have, I mean, I suspect a lot of people do lack confidence. I'm not as confident back then as what I am now. Like I was too scared to walk through the court doors back then. in case someone like shouted at me.
So was I actually. I used to see like that judge sat in the on the bench. And I used to think they're going to be sat thinking,
Yeah.
what is she doing here?
Exactly.
Not be like public gallery anymore.
I'll just go, it's totally fine.
Yeah, I'm not involved, Your Honour, I'm not involved.
Exactly. What was the question? I forgot.
Well, the question was, like, looking back, do you see
Mhm.
definite like development skills
Yeah.
in yourself from how you would deal with a situation if it was to go awry versus what you would do when you were, 18, 19 in the first position that you had?
Yeah, I have. And I think that comes with experience.
And confidence, like
And
you said.
confidence.
Yeah.
Like back then, I probably would have got myself all worked up, wouldn't have spoken to anyone about it, wouldn't have known what to do, be too scared or worried to speak to anyone in case they thought, how do you know how to deal with this?
Yeah,
Like,
of course, embarrassment type thing. It's like imposter syndrome, isn't it? That's the thing at the bar and the legal profession in general.
100%. But I think in time, your confidence does build.
Yeah.
And you will make mistakes or you will do daft things or say the wrong thing.
And every problem can be fixed with, it's that saying, isn't it? A problem shared is a problem halved.
Yeah.
And I live by that because every problem I've got,
Exactly.
everybody gets my problems. I'm like,
Same.
hello. But no, I agree. So do you think, sorry, you were going to say something else?
I forgot.
You were on something, right? Looking back now then at your first role and the responsibilities that you were given then, you said that you were thrown into the deep end.
Yeah.
Was your role more difficult then than what it is now? Or do you think you've got the same level of responsibility, if not more now, but you just know how to deal with it? Like, would you say you've got more responsibilities now than you did when you first started off?
Yeah, definitely the latter. I've definitely got more responsibility. I mean, back then when I first started, because I started as like a business admin apprentice.
Yeah.
So it was a lot of answering the phones, dealing with initial inquiries, like admin, etc.
So was that almost like lay clients calling through and saying, like, listen, I've been arrested, I need a solicitor?
Could be all sorts. It could be clients.
Because that must have been quite difficult as well, because if you've got somebody explaining like their charge sheet by the police and you're sort thinking, what the hell is this?
What's a Section 18?
Yeah, what's a Section 18?
Is that?
I don't know that. Yeah, quickly, legislation.gov, Google it. No, but
exactly, asking Siri.
No, that in itself, having, because phone confidence, like answering telephone, is a skill that I think is massively 100%. Downplayed. Actually answering the phone to somebody and speaking to them, giving that, not even if it's giving legal advice, but giving directing them to the right place and signposting them, that in itself is pressure, because imagine if you got it mixed up or and I can imagine you must have felt that pressure.
Yeah, because like I answered all the initial calls, so like your first port of call, so you're technically the face of the firm over the phone.
Of course.
So
you need to know what he's talking about or sound like it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I mean, in terms of phone calls, you can have people ringing up to discuss an ongoing case, or clients ringing up about new matters. You can have phone calls from the court, CPS, DSCC if new cases are coming in, clients ringing from custody, clients' family members, probation, the list goes on.
Yeah.
Or counsel, for example, may ring the office and
I think the reason we're having this podcast episode tonight is, as I said to you before we started the recording, it's to let other people know about how much goes on beyond the bar. Like, that it's not just the barristers and the wigs and the gowns that go in. And there's a lot of preparation work behind the scenes and a lot of different bodies that are involved in it and a lot of different, organisations working together and things like that. And you've just named off the bat, 5 or 6 there, like probation. There's lots of different institutions and organisations that play a big role into the criminal justice system that I think people don't realise happens behind the scenes. You've opened my eyes there. You said was it DCS?
DSCC.
Yeah, what's that?
So it's the Defence Solicitor Call Centre. So when an own client, or it could be someone in the cells who is asked for the duty solicitor, and if we're on rota, or if an own client's asked for us, the police ring it through to the DSCC.
Yeah.
Log the case, indicate obviously which firm they've asked for, which solicitor they've asked for, and then the DSCC ring to us. They say, are you willing to accept this case? And it's like, yeah. And then they tell you if it's own client or duty, who it is, their name, the offence, when they were booked into custody, and they have like a reference number. And then once we get that call, we then have to ring whichever police station they're in, which they also provide that information, and provide our details to custody. And then if we can, because sometimes due to staff shortages or clients being intoxicated, etc., we can't give advice calls. But 9 times out of 10, if we're able to, we'll give an advice call within the first, because you have to do it within the first 45 minutes of accepting the DSCC call. But if for whatever reason we can't, then we'll just obviously make a note of that.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So that's just one part of the whole process of getting a case, or because then you might take that case on and act as defence solicitor for that client in due course and things. And thank you for explaining that, Abby, because I didn't actually know what that was. I'd never heard of that abbreviation before, so it's really interesting that you've mentioned that. And of course, there was a previous podcast episode that I hosted with a solicitor. It was the most recent podcast episode, and in that, throughout that episode, he actually mentioned how various different barristers of all different expertise, of all different years of call, seniorities have actually said that giving advice in a police station is one of the most imperative parts of a case. And where you've just said there about the defence solicitors calling through to get a duty solicitor arranged, would you agree, looking back at your experience, that first advice is really important and crucial in a trial if it gets to that stage?
Yeah, I mean, initially when you just ring to give telephone advice, it's pretty vague, basic. Because at that stage, 9 times out of 10, well, I mean, at that stage, generally, we don't have any disclosure or anything. So it's just say to because you don't know really when you give them telephone advice in the police station whether or not the police are actually listening.
Yeah.
So you're just very vague, like, we're aware you're in custody, the police will ring us when you're ready for interview and someone will come down straight away.
Yeah.
We're aware you've been arrested for burglary, for example. And we'll discuss matters once we get a disclosure and get to the police station. Because obviously at that stage we don't have any disclosure. I mean, some of them might start talking about what's happened or say, I don't know what I'm in here for, but obviously at that stage you don't have any information.
So it's just to give them that kind of reassurance that you're on your way.
We know about that you're in custody. Don't worry, we'll look after you once the police confirm you're ready for interview. And then once the police ring us, we then obviously attend the police station.
And do you think so do you think that first interaction with the client and giving advice in the police station as a duty solicitor is really important as well?
It is. Obviously, I'm in the midst of doing my police station accreditation, so
can't wait. Cheering you on background for that.
Getting the nitty gritty of that. Yeah. But even I've been nervous about that.
Yeah.
Even after so long of doing this job, it is a very important stage.
It's like your own professional judgment, isn't it? So what you could be saying in your interpretation of the law, of course, the law is black and white, but it's still open to it's not to be argued. It's not, to be quite honest.
Yeah.
And I think, looking at when barristers make submissions in court and
it's a very grey area.
It is a very grey area. You could interpret it in so many different ways. That's the whole point of submissions, advocacy, and things like that. You're interpreting a case how you say it, and you see it, and you're expecting the judge to adopt that approach. So, but of course, it's quite a pressurized moment in the case if it gets to then trial as well, because the previous solicitor I spoke to said that what advice you're giving there is kind of like the crux of the case.
It can
defendant,
Yeah, because I mean, there's no right or wrong answer.
No.
But it really depends. I mean, people have said to me, oh, well, it's easy because you'll just tell them no comment. And I'm like, not necessarily, because it depends on,
you then have to explain why you've told them to, they've got to account for why they've said no comment. Yeah,
because obviously you have to give your reasons for the advice. They don't need to take it. They can do however they please, but obviously you give your advice as to how is the best way to proceed an interview. So it depends on a lot of things, like obviously the offence, the strength of the evidence they have at that stage. Bearing in mind, when you doing disclosure with the police prior to interview, they don't always disclose everything.
I was going to say, how much disclosure do you get, if I'm allowed to ask that question? What is it very dependent case by case?
Sometimes
do you think that they do kind of?
Sometimes they will give you, so say for example, they might say, oh, I've got some statements from eyewitnesses, and okay, cool, and go in an interview. And we've got your forensics on this, and we've got CCTV, and then for example, and then they don't tell you that disclosure. Then you're like, oh.
And I think,
but obviously the client can request to stop the interview at any time for further advice.
Right.
And I think if, depending on whether or not what they have disclosed in interview would change your advice, but then again, the client may change their view as to how they want to proceed an interview. It's dependent. Not every Not every case is the same.
And I guess everything you've just said there is probably very dependent on you building that really good trust with the client on first arrival, and you do that by, I'm guessing, correct me if I'm wrong, being authentic with them, being honest with them, coming down to a level with them, and just being yourself as well, taking kind of the lawyery side off, and where it's come across maybe a bit pompous and a bit, or like the lawyers here, taking that side off and coming down to a human level is probably a really great way to gain the trust from the client, because at the end of the day, their best interests are at the forefront of everybody's mind.
Exactly. And like, most people, obviously, most firms, I think, are on a duty rota. So, but then obviously a lot of the time you're mostly dealing with your own clients who you've built a relationship with over, could be years and decades.
Yeah.
Not for me, for my other colleagues.
Not that old.
Maybe 1 decade. So, they have that, you have that relationship with them and they do trust you. But going back to the advice that you provide within the police station, obviously depends where the case goes. The case could be NFA, they could be bailed for a matter of months and then filed to the CPS, and the CPS are like, not charging. It really depends, but it's still important because you really have to work on the basis of the advice I provide will be on the basis of, thinking about if this gets to court, if it goes to the Crown Courts in front of a jury, if there's no comment and the inferences that can be drawn. And it really depends on the offence of disclosure, etc., their instructions. I mean, they don't always need to take your advice, but you're there to provide it, which I have to look forward to.
And we had a personal conversation, I think maybe last week, and we were talking about the police disclosure, funnily enough, and how sometimes they might get a cooperative witness and they won't, they'll obviously break the neck to tell the duty solicitor that, but they might get an uncooperative witness who hasn't put a statement in. They might tell the solicitor, we haven't got it yet, or things that like misleading down a garden path, naughty police officers. I'm joking, they're great for the community and all, but like
they're important. I mean, they do. They can say, "Oh, well, do you have a statement?" Not yet.
Yeah.
So that's like, well, no, I don't know whether you're going to have one or not.
Of course, yeah.
But I'm working on the basis of you don't have one right now. So
that's very tricky, isn't it? Because you can go down so many different garden paths there.
You have to work on what
you've got in front of you, yeah, of course. But again, like you've said, that you can be blindsided, and it really loops back to what you just said there, how things can go a little bit left at times, and how you've just got to think on your feet, because like you've just said there, you can go into interview and then all of this can be mentioned, and you can be like, oh, well, that wasn't in the in the first disclosure with the police.
No right or wrong answer. I guess it's just using good judgment, experience, and trying to act in the best interest of your client, I guess. There'll be times where, my colleagues will say, answer no comment, for the right reasons in their view. And then obviously some people get irate during interviews. Sometimes police officers like to press buttons, or they're asking questions that clients might find triggering, and then they can start
to get irate
and then start not no commenting. And then you're like, shut up.
Thank you, Jess, for that. No, that's honestly, Abby, thank you so much. That's some really great advice there, and talking about the police accreditation certificate, and
look forward to it.
Best of luck in that. And would you advise a lot of other paralegals to get the teeth into that if they get the opportunity?
100%. I think, to be fair, I should have really done it years ago.
Yeah.
But doesn't matter. I'm doing it now.
Exactly. And years give you more experience, so it's not exactly. They give you more wrinkles and more experience.
More grey hairs. More trips to the hairdressers.
Money.
Cover them.
Money for Botox.
I know. But I think they should. I mean, if they're planning on, because I know a lot of people who want to go to the bar get positions as paralegals in firms. I think that's really important to get that experience.
For sure, and we'll get onto that later in the podcast as well, because I think that is one of our main topic areas, is about, young aspiring barristers gaining that experience.
Yeah, and I think it would be helpful to have that accreditation, especially if and when they do go to the bar, because if you've been in that position, I'm not saying barristers don't know the process in the police station, of course they do. But I think having that hands-on experience of dealing with clients in the police station, working as a paralegal and going to the bar, I think is quite beneficial.
It's unmatched experience, isn't it? Because it's that hand, like you've just said, it's that hands-on experience. It's dealing with, clients, real life clients, getting those skills about working on your feet, thinking on your feet. That's one of the biggest skills to go into the bar with, is to think about, when you're in court and a judge may say something to you that throws you off. You need to then be able to quickly navigate out of that if you can, the best way you can, of course, with like staying integral and not misleading anybody. But that's so important, and I think you're probably going to get those experiences in a really high pressurized environment where you're dealing with people, and people like, there's that saying, there's nothing quite like folk. People are so different, people are so unique, and they're so scary as well. Like, dealing with different people from different walks of life.
Yeah.
Develop natural skills from that anyway, seeing, and we're going to get onto this later on in the podcast as well, about maybe people with neurodivergent problems or different personality traits, having to navigate those type of people as well. And if you just become a barrister one day and you haven't got any of that experience, that could be quite damning maybe for the barrister, and the barrister's confidence as well. Like you said, it goes back to confidence as well, isn't it?
It does. And everyone has been new in a job at some point.
Of course.
And, it just comes with experience and confidence, and you will get there.
Yeah.
And, you'll make mistakes, or you'll say the wrong thing, or you'll do something that you find completely embarrassing, and you will think about it every night for 10 days and not go to sleep because of it. I've done plenty of times.
And thought you just ruined your full career and you liked everyone.
But like, everyone's been there, and there's people, like, I still make mistakes now, or like, it's just life.
I think
Don't give yourself a hard time.
Yeah, I think that's a really lovely piece of advice I've probably taken as well, that we've all got one life to live. We're all going to make so many mistakes.
Yeah, exactly. No one's perfect.
No, definitely nobody's perfect. And it's about, I guess, learning from the mistakes and taking something out with the mistakes. I always find, like, when I make a mistake, what can I take away from it? What wouldn't I do again?
Yeah.
And I think, like, you're always going to have those times in life where you think, oh, I should have dealt with that a little bit better or differently. But
100%. But it makes you grow.
Yeah, and it makes who you are. I agree.
Exactly.
So Abby, you talked about your position as a business and the business admin role that you had in your first apprenticeship. So that was predominantly taking phone calls and signposting. Now, as your role as a paralegal, a criminal defence paralegal, working on all of the Crown cases that your firm gets through, talk us through a day in your life. What do you do from start to finish?
Well, obviously every day is different, but in terms of what I do, so obviously I manage the Crown Court.
Yeah.
I won't say department because it's just me, but yeah.
More funding.
Exactly. David, let me hope you're watching.
Yeah. And do not scrap the jury trial.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I run the Crown Court.
Yeah.
So obviously I do that, and do you want me to get into the nitty-gritty?
Yeah, get into the nitty-gritty, absolutely. Yeah.
So obviously when a case has either been sent or elected to the Crown from the Magistrates' Court, I instruct counsel, organise a preliminary conference. Obviously, I attend all the conferences with counsel and the client as and when I can.
Yeah.
Then attend all the hearings and the trial. And obviously prepare the case behind the scenes with counsel, etc.
Having that first line communication with the client as well, I'm guessing. So they're probably calling through to you, if they're in prison, calling through to you, or
I mean, most of them are clients I've known for a long time.
Yeah.
Obviously there's always new clients. And there's people who've never been in trouble before in their life, and then next thing they're up at the Crown Court for a really serious allegation. So obviously, it's just guiding them through that process, and letting them know that, we're here acting in your best interests, and just kind of reassuring them. That's why preliminary conferences are quite important, because you get to meet counsel, us, get a feel for who your legal team is, and talking about the case at an early stage. So yeah, obviously I deal with all the Crown Court stuff. I also do most of the billing, which I actually quite enjoy. I'm quite a geek.
Oh yeah, what a mathematic girl.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
I mean, they'll never fix fee, the legal aid agency, but we slay.
And then they don't
have
pay
to work with what you've got.
They get like hacked, and then they don't pay for like 3 years.
Yeah.
Sorry, legal aid agency, that was really important.
Not gonna get political.
We're not gonna get political. We're staying away from all of that.
Actually, after a glass of wine.
Excuse me, think yourself.
I know.
No, I'm joking.
So yes, I do the billing. Obviously, phone calls, clients ringing through, DSCC calls, emails, preparing cases, conferences, going to court, going to the prison, you know, dealing with defense witnesses, getting witness statements, and just quite a lot.
Yes. Oh, absolutely. You've just stuff that you've just given me an overview of.
Yeah.
And obviously, I know you personally outside of this capacity, and I know that you deal with a lot of things.
Yeah.
And I'd like to just take you back a little bit there, just to what you said about how, you know, getting a feel for the legal team. And I think what you've just said there really sums up how important the role of a paralegal is, a solicitor is, a barrister is, and it goes beyond just the legal surface.
100%.
Because these people, like you've just said, they could have never been in trouble before. Next thing you know, they're up to the Crown Court facing a very serious allegation that they're now going to have to disprove, or start a journey of disproving and putting their case forward. And you know, it's like dealing with strangers. They've never met you, they've never met counsel before, they've never met the solicitor before. And I mean, I know there's only you in the department, so I'll take the solicitor role away, because I know that you have the hands-on role of that.
They do obviously like assist as well, like under their supervision. But
it's mainly your face that you go in conferences with clients. But the question I guess I'm getting at is then, do you agree? Would you think it's fair to say that there is different hats that you wear as a paralegal?
100%.
Of course, a lawyer as well eventually. If you are a lawyer, of course, this is applicable to you as well. But those different hats that you have to put on and take off, you know, one maybe kind of like a therapist role, a confidant role, you know, somebody to lean on, kind of like an emotional support system, especially for those clients who may have different difficulties and may struggle with different things, such as the mental health issues and lots of different things now. And I think there's a lot more awareness around ADHD and autism and things like that, and how that can impact a person, whereas maybe say 25 years ago it wasn't really as greatly spoken about and advertised about.
It wasn't.
And that gives, you know, clients a lot more of a support system now, because people are aware of those things, and people can, and we're going to get onto that about in terms of assessing when you think it's important for a client to be assessed, but it gives you kind of like that education to think, okay, this person may be displaying this type of personality trait or presenting as this person, so maybe they need to be supported in a different way and reasonable adjustments made for them. And in terms of I guess changing those hats is what I'm saying. Do you think it's fair to say that you're not just there as the law?
I mean, you're there as the legal team, a friend, a counsellor, or you know, like many other things. And sometimes, you know, you're going to come across people from all walks of life. You're going to deal with people who've suffered substance misuse, alcohol misuse, or they've suffered physical or sexual abuse through their life, and many other things.
Psychological abuse and you know, different types of aspects of relationships that have turned into physically abusive and things like that.
Or they have mental health issues that have, you know,
spiraled out of control. They've never got the help for it.
And have led to difficulties in life. And I think like everyone's human, obviously. Even those who are in the legal profession, everyone has their difficulties, and I think it's so important to support people and just being down to earth and being on their level, and you know, because it could be anybody in that dock. It could be me in that dock tomorrow.
Of course.
If this podcast spirals. I'm joking.
I don't know,
but it could be anyone, because people have
no.
found themselves in the dock and they're like, I can't believe
that
this has happened to me. I'm 40 years old. I've never been in trouble. And because it could be anyone. And I think it's very important to remember that and to be very
open and to being able to kind of put yourself in their shoes for a moment and support them the best way that you can, as a human, as you would a friend.
100%.
And it's like what you've just said there about how, you know, they may have never been in trouble before. I think a lot of us focus on, say, the most serious crime, murder, for example. Somebody may have, I don't know, God forbid, got into an altercation, stabbed somebody to death, and then you look at the history and it's because they've either been drug dealing or they've been in
there's always a background, 9 times out of 10.
Of course, or a scenario where they've been taking drugs and then something's gone wrong with another drug abuser or another drug user, but sometimes things can just happen as well. It's like the one-hit punches, you know.
That was
devastating for people's lives. And
100%.
It's about not kind of making those preconceived judgments, isn't it? That these people are just great. And it goes back to just, you know, when people probably have asked you before, I'm guessing they definitely will have, they definitely did when I was a paralegal, how can you defend people? That's the one question. And you think you actually don't have a clue what is on.
Because they're like, so if, how do you defend, like, someone who's done this, or whether it's serious sexual offences against children or serious sexual offences in general, that those are sort of the main events people focus on.
Yeah, I agree.
And I think people have this misconception that the client
is a monster who's just gone out.
Is a monster, and I don't know, it's like, that's why I don't really, obviously we use the word defend, but I prefer the term represent, because everyone has a right to a fair trial, and whatever you see that's reported in the Chronicle, etc., is quite biased as well.
Yeah, and very different to what actually has gone on in the case. You'll know from bundles. There's pages and pages and pages and pages of data, statements and reports and psychological reports, and just all those different things. And I think as well, going back to what we were just saying then about the awareness around mental health issues now. Before, depression probably would have been laughed off as something quite minor.
Or they'd just put you in an asylum.
Agreed. Whereas I think now people are starting to become familiar and definitely 100%. More educated on the fact that depression can actually impact the way somebody thinks, the way somebody behaves, the way somebody lives their daily life, and then they can end up in a situation that they really didn't expect to get into. And not to get like into a whole different debacle of like different institutions, but the NHS is seriously pressured at the moment. 100%. The mental health teams and the crisis response teams are massively pressurised at the moment.
Massively underfunded.
So yeah, of course, the psychiatric liaison teams, they're completely not pressurised to the maximum. So it's like it's all got a knock-on effect really, and like we've just said there, people don't know the story when it's reported in the news.
Well, exactly, and there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes, and a lot that you're privy to that isn't reported on. Of course it's not. And yeah, people have their opinions on social media and stuff, and it's life.
Yeah, of course. Everyone's entitled to an opinion, of course.
Exactly.
But I guess from a legal perspective and what we're doing on this podcast, it's just about saying to people, don't go into things in a one-minded state.
Open-minded.
Be open-minded, yeah.
And a lot of people with mental health struggles, a lot of clients will sometimes just some people don't really have family or friends for whatever reasons, and sometimes they just ring just to talk to someone, and that 20 minutes I may have spent with them on the phone may have
made their day a whole different.
It might not be anything to do with their case. They may have been sentenced 2 years ago and they're still serving, and they'll sometimes just ring for a chat, which I think's nice.
I agree.
It's nice to be able to speak to people, and they'll always go, I'm so sorry you're talking about my problems, and I'm like, but you're talking to me, you're talking to someone, and I'd much prefer that than you sitting withering away in yourself.
Exactly. And also you actually probably are preventing in the long run potentially more crimes to be have then committed, or them to have gotten into a more of a dangerous road if they're speaking about the problems and they're getting into that habit of talking about their issues. It's a good place to start, because I think sometimes when people bottle things up, that's when it goes awfully wrong.
I think a lot,
not that we're therapists, because we're certainly not,
definitely not, but it's always nice to just to get stuff off your chest to someone. But I think obviously the help that a lot of people do need, I mean, obviously you can only help yourself. If you don't want that help,
it's difficult. You can take a horse to water, but you can't make a drink.
Exactly. But again, we come to the lack of funding in a lot of services, and there's people I've dealt with over the years who have only then got the support they've needed from mental health services when they have committed quite a serious crime. Which has then led to, one case, like a hospital order, for example. And this person spent decades trying to get the help, was neglected by the system, etc. And then which led to a really serious offence being committed in hospital. Happy, if you can say happy, that they're now getting the support that they need.
It was a little bit too late.
But unfortunately, that happens a lot. You see that a lot, that it takes for them to commit offences or serious crimes to then get the support that they need, because they couldn't get it beforehand. And obviously, some people have the privilege of being able to pay privately for mental health services, counselling, psychologists, etc. But a lot of people don't have that privilege, and it's quite sad
It's quite worrying, actually.
It is.
Off the back of what you just said there, I read something, I think it was a couple of weeks ago, that some people who have been in hospital for suicidal ideations, bit of a trigger warning just for anybody who is listening to it. I know it's a very sensitive topic, but for anybody who's been in hospital, I'll say for mental health issues, if they are not presenting as actively suicidal, then they have to wait 3 weeks to be put onto the NHS psychiatric liaison team counselling service. And I think that's appalling, because they could walk out of that hospital and they could change within an hour, because they haven't got that immediate support. And I don't understand how that can even be possible. And then you kind of wonder why people get into either really horrendous situations for themselves, or where they're endangering the lives of themselves and others as well.
Well, yeah, people lead to self-medicating to try and assist the mental health issues, because it just makes it all go away. Which then can lead to offending.
Of course it can.
And it's just a really
horrible cycle.
Bad cycle. And it's horrible. Because a lot of people genuinely want the help. And it's just not really there for them.
Thank you so much as well for bringing that side of it to the podcast, because I think a lot of people don't realise, like we just said, there's a lot of like preconceived misconceptions about defending certain people and defending certain
people. You're dealing with human beings at the end of the day. And when you, especially like in the Crown Court, because cases can go on for some time, and you build up over quite some time a relationship with someone, you know, talking about all sorts, learn about their life background. And we're all human beings at the end of the day, and
we've all had our struggles, we've all had our past, we've all got history, and we've all, you know, and not all of us have been lucky enough to get the help to get through it. So I agree with that, actually. So it goes back to what we originally said about the different hats that you wear as a paralegal, and as a lawyer as well. And of course, you've just said there, like being a counsellor, and that ties in so well. So thank you so much for giving that side of the legal profession as well. And that it's not always about going into things and being very like legal headed and you know, all these different type of like technical differences in law and things like that. It's actually about sometimes just being human as well.
100%.
And that will lead us on to like our next topic when we talk about barristers, when you're instructing them, and what you're looking for in a barrister, and what type of personality traits you're looking for in a barrister when dealing with certain types of cases. And the next thing we're going to talk about is when you actually are dealing with people who are potentially displaying neurodivergent symptoms or difficulties and things like that. When do you think it's relevant to get them assessed, and the not power, but I guess the power that you have to then initiate an assessment for them. So can you talk through how that works? So say, for example, you've gone to a prison for a conference, and you've thought, right, okay, this client is displaying quite some concerning signs, and I'm worried about maybe even the fitness to stand for the trial, and even not even that, just also elements of the offence that could be then pulled into question, depending on their mental state and mental capacity. When do you think it's like relevant to call that time for assessment, and when, and how often do you do that actually as well?
I mean, it's not extremely often. I mean, in terms of fitness to plead, I think you get a good feel quite early on. In terms of whether or not fitness may be an issue in a case.
Sorry to interrupt you there. Can you just explain the signs that you would get if you're worried about someone's fitness to capacity to plead in a trial?
So obviously I'm not going to go into the detail, but I'll just refer to a previous experience. I had one client who was arrested for a very serious offence, put before the remand court, and when one of my colleagues was having a consultation with them in the cells, you obviously at that stage you do need to get initial instructions, but obviously it was a section 18, so effectively it's just going to be sent straight to the Crown. Obviously you still need to take some initial instructions, and trying to take those instructions, and they could tell that the client was, the way they were coming across, it was a lot of delusional talk, in paranoid thoughts, and could not take clear instructions, trying to ask quite basic, straightforward questions, couldn't get anywhere.
So that's the type of signs that you're looking for. It's
that's quite extreme. So at that stage, straight away, we're like, right, okay, psychiatrist, fitness to plead, etc.
So when talking about maybe the other
sides of
the other
it.
sides of it, yeah.
So you obviously can have clients who have diagnosis of ADHD or autism, and sometimes we'll obviously explore the avenue of possibly getting an intermediary, depending on, because obviously there's a spectrum, isn't there? Well, obviously you talk it through with a client.
Yeah.
Do you think it would benefit you being assessed by an intermediary? Do you think it would assist you in court, etc.? Obviously, depending on the outcome of the report. But I think sometimes, I don't know, you just kind of get a feel.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I think it's just...
like you just said there, you're on a human level, aren't you? You're looking at
Exactly.
somebody who's probably in despair,
Yeah.
in a bit of a crisis, and they're clearly showing those.
Yeah, because sometimes
signs.
even with fitness to plead, it even happened with that case I just mentioned before.
Yeah.
At that time, they were
Rendered
not
fine.
well at all.
Yeah.
And experiencing delusions, etc. And then after they were remanded in custody, and after a few months of being in custody, and being put on the proper medication, they were a lot more stable.
Right.
Not obviously still having mental health issues.
Yeah.
But a lot more stable.
Yeah.
So at that stage,
then the dynamic of the changes
in the psychiatrist, because at the initial stage I was like, I can't see how they can be fit to plead, but
so interesting that you say that, how it can shift.
Oh, it can. But then a stint in custody and some medication, and they were assessed as fit to plead. And
do you think that was the right decision?
Yes.
Yeah.
And they were brilliant in the box as well.
Oh wow! Congratulations.
Yeah, they actually that was a defense of insanity,
right,
that was successful.
Wow.
And so much pressure.
And
I
also,
aged 10 years.
Botox. And also, what a wholesome moment that must have been for you when because you talk
about on the defense.
Yeah,
for that.
of course it is. It's the verdict on the defense, and it's like you've really done your job there.
Much pressure.
And same for counsel as well. Obviously, extended congratulations to the counsel as well, of course, in the case.
Jamie Adam, but thank you.
Hey, shout out. But of course, wow, that must have been such a great feeling. And such a crack in a case where it's one of those ones where it's important as well. But of course, every case is important. But I'm saying when you've got somebody who's genuinely in a serious crisis, and you need that to be, advocated and presented to the court for them, and that people get a real clear understanding of what this person's going through.
Yeah.
What a relief.
So unfortunate. She had such a difficult life, and a lovely woman.
Yeah.
Obviously the incident that happened, was a serious one, of course, but you could just tell she just
broken person.
Yeah, she just needed that help and support, and which she's now getting.
And it's look the fact that the help and support has probably been not initiated, but definitely the ball started to roll because there's the legal team involved in it, and it goes back to exactly what I've just said. It's like a recurring theme of how important the roles are within the legal profession. It's not just this lawyer going in with a head on, being this snobby educated person. Because let's not lie, anybody who's in the legal profession are well educated. But of course, it's
Not me.
of course you are, Mrs. Swart. You've just said you're a mathematics genius. But of course, it just goes to show that it goes way beyond that, It
does, and
it's really would you say your job is fulfilling? At times,
it can be,
of course,
yeah, and especially you get those cases where you're so, where how do I put this?
Let's be candid. I was just about to say this. What are some of the cases where you just think, oh, I could just please listen to me, client? What do you, and how often do you get them? Quite a lot.
Oh,
of course, and that's the honest side of the legal profession. It's not. You're not always going to have fairies and rainbows and flowers and lovely clients who want to sit and listen. Of course, some are going to challenge, and again, it's no judgment because, like you said, they're in the worst position of their life.
Of course.
And I don't know if I was up for, God forbid, trial, I don't think that I would be sat there, curling my hair in a calm state and listening to everything my legal professional was telling me, I probably wouldn't. I'd be like,
you don't know how it feels until you're in their shoes.
Well, of course, and every human wants to have that element of control, and if you can't control something, it triggers it triggers every human, no matter how calm you are. If you've got the patience of a Samaritan, it's still going to trigger you if you've not got that element of control over things. So for them, especially if they're remanded, they are going to be combating, and especially if they they don't have the legal knowledge, they don't have the legal expertise to understand when you're saying to them, okay, you want to say that it's self-defense, but you understand that you need to prove certain elements within self-defense. They're not going to understand that, so I can understand they're going to get very irate quite quickly.
They do, and obviously I've said this before, you don't have to take our advice, counsel's advice, my advice, and sometimes that's just part of the job. You have to give difficult advice to people who might not want to hear it. But I always say to people, I'm very raw, I'm very real. I'm not going to sell you a dream and say we're going to get you off of this, you'll be fine. No, it's not how I work. Some people may work like that. That's not how I work. And I'm very raw and very honest. Some people don't, they don't react well to that. Because I think it's the reality of it, the reality of the situation. And it's scary for them. And it is, especially if they're looking at big time, it's very serious offence.
Of course.
All you can do is advise. And if they don't want to take your advice and they want to press ahead with trial, no matter how strong the case is, then, well, you have to, that's your instructions if they want a trial.
And also, as much as it's so important, as we've just said, to have those different hats, it's also important to remember the integral and honest role that you've got to play as a paralegal. You cannot lie to somebody, you cannot mislead them. It's like, for me, talking from an aspiring barrister perspective, it's like the ethics, the
100%
board, implement these ethics in a handbook that you cannot do certain things, under certain conduct rules and court duties. And sure, they're extended for the SRA and all the rest of it. But it's what you've just said there, you do have to give sometimes difficult advice, because it's also, I guess, in a way, I don't want to say it in a diminishing type of aspect, but it's a back covering exercise as well. Like we've spoken about before, you also need to cover your own back as well, and especially when I was a paralegal, those attending notes are so important, because
if you get a complaint,
of course, and it's thinking about the worst case scenario sometimes. Well, you have to to be less optimistic and a bit more pessimistic and real. You do have to kind of sit and think, okay, how can I ensure I've covered myself as well? Of course, after giving all of the support you can to them, you do have to click back into your own.
100%. It's just having that balance with them.
Yeah, of course.
And some will, I think, because when some you're on a really good level with, and then sometimes they think oh, you like me, mate? Oh, I'll tell you this. And I'm like, no.
Oh my God. Don't tell me that ever.
We're not in the pubs. No.
No, of course, and that must be difficult.
You forget, but I think it's not a bad thing. It's because you've got such a good relationship with them, such a good rapport. I think they're just oh, blah, 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 blah.
And I think as a legal professional as well, it's such a fine line, isn't it? Because you want to have that role with them, because you want to be able to connect with them, but then it's so you
have to have boundaries.
Boundary,
once they tell me something, I can't unhear that. And
then you're stuck then, of course, and you're ethically challenged as well.
100%.
And it puts the case in a different perspective. But
why do I have to get a new solicitor? Remember what you said to me on Formula 2?
No, but
it's that doesn't happen often. Sometimes it does, but
not all the time. You have to deal with it. Well, Abby, thank you so much for that advice that you've given, and showing the real side of the process of having conferences with clients, and also I guess thank you for bringing that to life, that it does happen sometimes and occasionally.
It does.
Because I think it's very important for people to see it doesn't always go smoothly.
No.
And they are humans, they're going to say things under emotionally charged situations.
Personality clashes as well.
Yeah, of course, absolutely. And you're not going to get along with every client.
No.
And I think sometimes this fantasy fairy tale is sold on ITVX, where you're watching a barrister have a fantastic relationship with a client, or in a Netflix drama, Harvey Specter, the biggest little liar that there is.
I love him.
But he does manage to smash out the park every time. But it is obviously dramatised. It's dramatised. And I think it's just reminding people that when you're watching those things, it is different.
Not real.
Even victims and witnesses and things like that, and jury members, I think they've got a very different
100%
view to what goes on in a Crown Court trial.
Yeah, and it's just, and people are like, well, why can't I do this? Or why can't I do that? Why can't I say this? Why can't I put this in? And
Yeah.
now I'm having to explain there's rules, or if you want to admit this, you have to make an application. The judge decides. So I can't just like whip it out in the trial like you do on Legally Blonde. And so like if I ever have a murder where someone's went for a perm,
Yeah.
I will know.
What was it, Brooke? She called Brooke in
Brooke.
Brooke, yeah.
Yeah.
Brooke, yeah, what was the name? Miss Brooke. She was all about the fat loss exercise, wasn't it? And then
I took a shower. We had a shower.
Oh my
Apple
God.
perm? Aren't you meant to leave it for like 48 hours?
Yeah. And then that's how she found out that the daughter had killed the
big fat slave from Reese Witherspoon there, like.
Brilliant. So we'll go on to the next topic. So Abby, the next thing that we're going to talk about is your role when instructing barristers. So you have gave us a really good in-depth overview of what you do when you get the case and how you start to get the preliminary conferences and all of the rest of that. And then you look to instruct counsel. So of course it's going to be case by case dependent, and you're going to instruct barristers depending on their skills that you've probably witnessed and the feel that you get from them in terms of how well they could represent the client. But do you have kind of like a rigorous role when instructing counsel, or do you like take the case as a whole and think, right, who can I best place for this? And then my second question is, how do you best place them? What skills do you look for in them?
I'm quite I think it's case and client dependent.
Okay.
You do have clients who will have, counsel who they frequently use.
Right.
However, if it's something where if it's a client who doesn't appear before the Crown Court a lot, and they're like, oh, you choose counsel. So I think a lot would go off what the offence is, what the position is, whether they're contesting it, or whether there's a chance that they may plead after a conference or whatever. What the client's personality is like as well. Some people need a bit more TLC than others.
Absolutely.
Everyone's got different personalities.
Yeah.
I try and match the counsel to the client. I can be quite particular.
Yeah.
I know I can be. Like everyone else.
So anyone who's instructed, congratulations.
All of chambers who I instruct. I'm a nightmare.
Can we get like a little bit of a peek sneak to who your favourite chambers is? You've got to say it now. You're.
Oh no! My favorite.
Okay, well, let's say like top 3.
I don't have a top 3. My favorite chamber.
I love the honesty.
My favorite chambers is definitely New Park Court. They're like, I call them.
I'm not gonna lie.
And she's repping the pen.
I'm repping the pen.
Yeah, and I call them like the golden retriever of chambers, because obviously so impressive that they've been ranked the #1 chambers.
That chambers. Let me not even say anything at the moment anyway. Like, I love them.
Like to say golden retriever energy.
They are just amazing chambers. Like
they are amazing.
The caliber of counsel that they hold there is incredible. And the progression of the counsel there is just absolutely phenomenal.
I do love Fountain Chambers as well.
Yes,
they have great counsel.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Shout out to Fountain. So we love those both, and obviously we probably love every other chambers on the North Eastern Circuit as well.
No, it's because I don't instruct every chambers.
No, but we love them though. We still love them. They're all doing phenomenal. They're all phenomenal.
Yeah, you go girl.
They're all. I mean,
yeah.
Listen, all I'm saying is
you can't instruct every chamber.
The North Eastern Circuit, like
the North
considering honestly, considering how small of an area we are, and especially from my perspective, doing mini pupilages and the Judge Marshall instance that I've done in London on the Southern Circuit, I mean. Chambers fantastic work nationally, but North Eastern Circuit, I'm so proud to be a part of
fantastic
this area.
Quality of barristers, I think, in the North
so down to earth as well. And it goes back to what you're saying. Like, I notice a difference from the Southern Circuit to this circuit. Like,
but I can't comment. But you have experience.
I do have experience, but you know what? I'm talking like probably loads of like
rubbish
stuff here, because actually the London barristers that I know are amazing. Like my top 3, like Mark Robinson, who is
he's
he's his daughter. Yeah, he's doing regulatory and professional discipline there. And Keir Monteith, King's Counsel, love, like the most kindest person in the world. Actually went to University of Essex, And also who else I've met from London that have been amazing. That would be it. I'm joking. No, there is more.
Just two.
No, there is plenty more. Yusuf Sawley from Fernivall Chambers.
I
I did a
know
mini with him. He was hilarious.
one
And phenomenal
barrister
barrister as well. But
from London, Sailor Schmetter from Red Lion. He is,
I've heard Red Lion's amazing.
yeah, he's a fantastic barrister. But
I mean, the barristers are everywhere, in my opinion. I love them
they
all.
are,
They're
but you
my
just,
inspiration as well. You've got to think,
well,
especially
yeah.
an aspiring barrister for me, they're like they're my inspiration, they're my like figures that I put on like a pedestal. And I'm like,
I just go off like, you know, it's who I predominantly our work's like in the northeast. It's in
absolutely.
mostly like 98% of our work is in Newcastle.
Yes.
I get the odd case in Durham. I think
Mhm.
I've had probably a handful of cases in Teesside in the last 11 years. So I'm just going off, you know. I don't really know many council
No.
past.
I would
Yeah,
forget.
yeah.
No, but that's amazing that
But
you've
they are all
just
great.
made some great chambers there for people to look to apply to for pupillage as well in the future.
I think
you know.
everyone's great in the northeast, even the judiciary at Newcastle
Yeah.
as
The
well. Or like,
marshalling I've
I think
done.
we're so lucky.
I mean, the marshalling
Yeah.
I've done in the like at Newcastle was just a really great experience. It was 2 days of, really great experience. I was with
Yeah.
two judges and they were both fantastic. And the judge marshalling that I've done in London, the judges were fantastic there as well. So I think like on the whole, they're all
Yeah.
absolutely amazing. But yeah, thank you so much for giving two great chambers that you instruct. So can we do maybe a bit of an example? So say for example, you've got somebody who is, like you said, 40-year-old, let's say a male, has never been in trouble before, really great character, and is now up before in the Crown Court facing a very serious allegation. Of course it's case by case, so without getting into like giving you like examples of cases for you to then like, but like say for example it was like a GBH, what skills would you be looking for in an advocate to then represent this person? Obviously I'm not expecting you to name any advocates, but I'm just saying what type of skills would you be looking for in that?
Somewhat, because everyone's different. Everyone has different client care skills. Usually, of course, when it's a new client who's never been in trouble before and it's a serious allegation, you know, it's incredibly scary. And I think a barrister who has exceptional client care skills, and I'm going to say the term hand-holding, but not in a, do you know, like in a good way.
That is so funny that you just said that, because Mark Robinson, I've just mentioned there in episode 3, he said you are there to hold the client's hands and walk them through this process and say
that's what you're there for.
We're in it together.
Yeah.
And that's just so incredible that you've just mentioned that same type of aspect, like that perspective on it, because I think a lot of barristers do have that aspect and that perspective on when dealing with clients, to handhold them and to guide them through. So yeah, I think that's a really fair statement to make, to be honest.
Yeah, and like I said, it's scary time, and like it do go off the personality, and then I'll look at barristers I've worked with and their personalities, because I think that is incredibly important.
Yes.
And just match them. And I'm like this counsel who I know would be a lot more hand-holding maybe than others, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, but everyone has their ways of work and everyone's different.
Yeah.
Everyone's got different client care skills. I'm not saying one's right, one's wrong. But like I say, some people need a bit more hand-holding than others. Some people are in and out the system frequently and are used to it, and not to say that obviously we don't give 100% there, of course we do.
Yeah.
But you know, everyone's different. Now I can't remember the question.
No. It was just you've answered it perfectly. It was the qualities that you look for in a barrister. But so then I guess on the flip side of that, the qualities that you may not really be so attracted to in terms of counsel, and I'm not expecting you to name them and name counsel that you don't particularly like. But in terms of
one more glass of wine, I will. Joking.
No, I'll pay you to have one more glass of wine now, and I'll get the names out. But in terms of then, from like my perspective as an aspiring barrister, what would you tell like aspiring barristers, pupil barristers, even so much as junior tenants that have had a very early call? What would you tell them to ensure that they keep within themselves to maintain the best reputation on circuit so that they are not disliked? Like, what qualities would you look at in a barrister where you think, oh no, I would never instruct you? Because let's be totally honest here. You the paralegals and instruction solicitors do instruct barristers, so you get your work from them. So if you're being not very kind, not very nice to people, then you're probably not going to have a great career at the bar. So what advice would you give to people that are coming up to the profession in terms of their qualities?
I know it's very cliche to say be yourself. However,
Be yourself.
that, well, yeah, like that,
Yeah.
like when some of the barristers I work with, and I have done for quite some time now, and when they have pupils and I meet the pupils, and like I'm very much like, oh, like I want to see what they're about. I want to see what their personality's like.
Yeah.
Because I feel like working in crime, my personal opinion, I think you either have it or you don't.
Yes.
And I think that's how it is in crime. You either have it or you don't. And I think you need a certain vibe, personality. Do you know what I mean?
So I always say it's like it's a vocation, isn't it? Like this job, whether you take it on as a barrister or a paralegal or a solicitor, you take on this vocation to represent people and represent them to the best of your ability and really fight for them. And it's like it's a calling. Like I always say, it's like a calling. So you don't want somebody who's a bit like half-hearted or like not really showing their true self and really wanting to fight for the client, because like you've just said, it's all about the client's best interest as well.
It is, and I see not a lot, but I know obviously when people go into pupillage, I don't know what it feels like, obviously, but I can imagine it's quite scary. There's a lot of pressure. You don't want to put a foot wrong in case it affects, I get it.
Yeah.
But the, obviously the people you're working with, you're seeing, meeting solicitors with your supervisor, etc. And you're meeting people who are potentially going to be your source of work, like your source of income.
Yeah. So be yourself and
be yourself. Open. I know it's a confidence thing, and sometimes certain people take a while to warm up. That's totally fine. Like I was the exact same. Yeah, and I just think just be real to yourself, be true to yourself. And when I think this might be a bit controversial, I don't really know. I don't know if it is or not.
God help me.
No, but when obviously they get tenancy, great. And I feel like sometimes people can
change.
I don't know whether it's change or whether it's
true colours.
Yeah. And yeah, and sometimes can become a bit maybe full of themselves. Is that I don't know, it's a bit
No, it's a very fair, it's an honest
because I don't say it a lot. I don't, because some of the pupils that
are amazing.
Oh, they are, honestly. And I always ensure to try and give pupils a chance, like when they're in their second six or if they've just got tenancy, I'll always try and give them work, whether it's like committal for sentence or like a straightforward guilty plea, just to, get them started and get them some defence work. Like I always try and give people a chance, because how else are they gonna?
And a lot of people will have the same operational mindset that you've just got there, to give pupils a chance.
You have to. It's
the case of, just kind of be yourself, and obviously if you're not a nice person, then you can't pretend to be one. But obviously, let's hope that, of course, every chambers that takes on a pupil there will be a nice person, of course, because chambers don't just choose monsters. They choose the best people that are there to be the soldiers for the society, isn't it? Really defending people. But I think that's really lovely to hear, that you should just continuously be yourself and don't change when you work up and you get achievements. You don't need to change when you become more successful as a person. In fact, if anything, you should stay the same and stay humble. Exactly. Humility is a massive thing.
And I think sometimes also clients can feed off personality as well. Like sometimes I'll instruct counsel on a case and the client's like, nah, I'm not. And personality clashes, and sometimes it might not be counsel's anything wrong.
No.
But that's just how it happens in life. People's personalities clash. Sometimes they'll clash with people. Nothing's exactly happened. But I say to the client, well, if you're not comfortable with counsel, even though my view of them is completely different to the client's, it's their case. Like if they want me to change counsel, I'll do that. Obviously, I'll try. I won't just do it straight away. I'll talk to them about what their concerns are, etc., and try and reassure them.
Yeah. But
Because
if it's not working, then you need to stop that relationship and get a new working relationship.
Well, exactly, because it's
like their case,
and it doesn't matter what I think.
It's their chance, isn't it, to fight their case the best they can. You want the best person that they connect with and gel with,
and that they have put their trust into.
Absolutely, and trust is a massive thing. I think that's that word we keep on referring to because it's such a big thing.
It is.
So off the back of that, what do you think I'll be like as a pupil? Manifesting it.
You'll be like me with a wig.
Oh, Christ. I don't know if that's an insult.
Excuse me. No, you'll be great.
Thank you so much for that.
I'll definitely give you a brief.
Thank you very much for that.
Well, criminal offence,
yeah, put my teeth in the magistrates and all. I'm manifesting this. So, anyways, moving on. What happens when you don't really have particularly a pleasant opinion on counsel, but you know that they are absolutely the best fit for the client? Has this happened? Is my first question. Second of all, what's your views on it and how do you deal with it?
Okay. Yes, I have.
Yeah.
However, my main priority is the client, not me. So my views on counsel. So, for example, if it's just personality traits I don't like, but they are exceptionally skilled and a very good advocate, that's what's important for the client. And if the client likes that particular barrister and gets along with them and trusts them, that's all that matters.
Yeah.
My opinion on a personal level is irrelevant because at the end of the day, the client comes first.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm gonna have to be in a trial with this person for 4 days.
Can you name it?
No, I'm joking. 2 more glasses I'll name. No, I'm joking.
You said 1 glass a second ago.
Honestly, I think it's extremely rare. I mean, within the 11 years.
I think you've got a very great personality that anybody could get along with. So I find it would be really rare that you not get along with somebody. And I think like what we've just said about the North Eastern Circuit, a lot of the barristers are fantastic.
They're great.
And
they are,
great
honestly.
Personality.
They do. I mean, like, you're going to clash with people in life, in work. It's going to happen. And it may not be that we don't get along. It may just be like, there could be traits of my personality people don't like.
Yeah.
It's just life. And
yeah, of course.
But the client comes first. And whether or not I like counsel, I mean...
You're looking for their skills that you can...
that I can apply to the client's case.
Of
and,
course.
It doesn't mean to say, if I don't particularly warm to someone, I'm not going to instruct them. If I think they're ideal for this case, I'll instruct them.
Brilliant, thank you so much for telling me that as well. So then let's move on to a little bit about you personally. So what's your proudest moment so far in your career, and why is it your proudest moment?
I don't know about what my proudest moment is. I don't know, because
it's a difficult question.
It is a difficult question.
Case or proudest time, like the what you're most proud of when you've navigated through something that was quite difficult, maybe like a stressful time that you've had and you've managed to come out at the end of it, a really stressful trial or...
So I think it was around 5 years ago the bar went on strike due to
remember
that rates, etc.
Yeah.
So there was an application to vary bail for one of my clients, and obviously due to the strike I was like, well, obviously
this is my time to shine.
Yes, give me my wig. Because obviously it's in chambers. Yeah, because it's in chambers, obviously I can deal with it. I was like, you know what, I'm gonna do it. Boss girl. Prepped it like it was a murder. Honestly, absolutely ridiculous. Because people watching this who are barristers, they'll be like, oh, I do like 5 of them a day.
Yeah. But like to you, that must have been the bit. Well, to me, I'll be like moving a mountain, and I've
got no advocacy experience whatsoever. Obviously, I've never even personally wanted to go to the bar or anything like that. So I've had no advocacy experience. And I'm like, obviously, checking the court list. Who's it in front of? And then it was in front of like one of these like assistant general judges,
like a deputy judge, like a deputy district judge or
military sort of people.
Oh, right.
Do you know what I mean? I can't think.
Like a trial, was it?
No.
Oh, like
assistant general, like judge, that sort of vibe.
Like a deputy, like a district judge, I think then.
No, it's not. Anyway, my mind's went blank. Somewhere.
No.
Anyway, so
sorry, I was like, in the sense of knowing that you know what a recorder is. But I'm just trying to think, that's so interesting. We'll discuss after.
Yeah. So yeah, I was basically prepping it like it was a murder. So embarrassing. And I was like, yeah, I'm gonna pass this. And in fairness, for me, I thought it was quite a difficult application.
Yeah.
It was for a client who had 2 outstanding drugs conspiracies. flying Class A's, and obviously had his passport seized by the police.
Okay.
And he wanted to apply to have his passport returned so he could go and visit family in Europe.
Yeah.
And initially I was like,
never gonna get
no, they're not going to give him his passport. Because, you know, that you work on that assumption because the like an absconding risk.
Of course.
And I prepped it like I say, like it was a murder. It's like, yes, girl, let's go.
Every day we slay.
Yeah. And oh my God, like the application was great.
I'm so proud.
I was buzzing around. I remember ringing my colleague Judith. I was like, oh my God, like the application was granted.
That's fantastic.
And I was so proud of myself. And like,
rightly so.
It sounds ridiculous because some people do this every day and they're like, well, that's nothing. But for me, for never ever doing any sort of advocacy whatsoever, I was well impressed. And then I'd done one after that and totally messed it up and never done it ever again. So advice for pupils, right? If you have an application to vary bail and you started off by saying, there's no issue with this application, Your Honour, other than the fact that it's opposed, you may as well just throw your wig in the bin because that's exactly what it And the judge was just like, shut up. Is that how you felt your application, Mr. Taylor? I was like, apparently so, Your Honour. I'm going to sit down. Nothing further to add.
And I will never show my face as courtroom again.
And I never did.
I'm proud of you for not
on the front bench anyway.
I'm proud of you for not having the disrespect to go back and wind the judge up. Well done for that.
Oh,
that is the funniest thing I've ever heard. But no, that is like
a moment.
No, and rightly so. And I think like that in itself, like I think when you are definitely going up to the profession to become a barrister. And I know I keep mentioning it, but obviously call to the bar, it's in the name. It is about the bar. I can't shy away from that. And I want to be a barrister. I think when you're going up to like that type of level in your head, the profession, in your head you're like, you have to get not guilty pleas if you're defending all the time. And like that's the only way you can have a successful career. And I think people don't actually realise the bail applications and like those type of things and
even
really just
like
important.
Guilty pleas or cracking a trial, like getting a successful outcome for your client, even though it doesn't always have to be an acquittal. Acquittal isn't always a successful outcome.
Yes.
You know, even if someone's been sent to jail, but it's a lot less than what they're looking at.
That's a success. Yeah, absolutely.
It is.
I think in those moments as well, the client, they're kind of like, I'll take anything I get as well, because they're in this like really desperate position of their life where they'd be grateful for anything, And
I think a lot of people have this assumption that most clients are contesting matters. And I know it wasn't bad. And I'm like, you'd be surprised how many people are like, yeah, that was me. Yeah, I done that. Or, it's not always
this like dramatized. It's what we said about dramatized. Like
it is so dramatized.
People get this really, really horrendous misconception of the legal system.
They do.
But let's talk about some truths about the legal system, the criminal justice system. Get your political head on. What do you think that the criminal justice system is in dire need of? Money.
Dollar signs.
Is that off Mamma Mia? Money.
Yes.
Yeah, it is. So a lot of I love her, but I love her in The Devil Wears Prada. Or
me too. She's a big fat
in Mamma Mia. Because I hate Mamma Mia. I think it's just the most pathetic, cringe thing ever. But like, I'll not get into that. Okay.
I love it.
And I just don't like you for that.
Thank you.
I'm joking. So money. Okay, can you like elaborate on that? Can you tell us why it needs more money? What departments are being severely? Yeah, of course. But how are you being affected by the funding? You personally as a paralegal, or how are your clients personally being affected by the funding and the state that the criminal justice system is in right now? Other than the backlogs, of course. I mean, that's just bad enough as it is.
I think the government like to try and solve the problem without actually doing what they need to do to solve the problem.
Yeah.
And that can be said for a lot of things, not just the criminal justice system, but we are where we are. I think in terms of the backlog,
that's like a whole other podcast episode.
They try and blame COVID. COVID is a contributing factor. However, it's not the sole reason of the backlog.
Would you say, and this is a controversial area, but would you say the Crown Prosecution Service over using their powers, perhaps? I mean, I'm talking about this in an aspect of like joint enterprise is getting ridiculously overused from practitioners I've spoken to, and research reports I've read, and different various sources that I've read. to me, it's clear that joint enterprise is, in some cases, definitely being overused, which is then causing, obviously, a
Definitely a
further...
difficult one in some cases.
Yeah, of course. But do you think that sometimes the CPS are maybe overusing their powers and charging on some of the most...
I am of the view that there's a lot of cases that could be resolved.
It's a very red tape area.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. You know,
I don't want to put you into a difficult position
No.
at all, but it's just about being, I guess, honest and raw and on this podcast as much as you can be.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't, obviously, I don't work in the CPS. I don't know whether the difficulties sometimes lie. Yeah. I don't. I think sometimes
Maybe a contribution of all factors.
yes.
Yeah, that might be the fairest way to
Yes.
put it.
I think
Probably an element of everything is that
there is.
yeah, an element of money, an element of the court, like, you know, the COVID.
Well, for example, there's a
pandemic.
case we have ongoing and that we've been trying to resolve for some months. And just no response from the CPS, which can be a recurring theme.
Yeah, of course. So that in itself is a challenge, because how are you supposed to progress the case or the trial? Yeah, of course. So there's definitely probably a mixed factor by the sound of what you're saying then, from your experience. Ultimately, you think it boils down to more funding.
Yeah.
And you know, maybe the reason for the delay in response from the CPS could be because they don't have the staff. And then again, that relates back to funding again. So
that's all why I'm careful with what I say, because I don't know
what's going on with that organisation. Yeah, of course.
You know, it's just assumptions of mine.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I don't know whether there is staff shortages.
No, I think that's an appropriate view to take, that you don't know, so you can't comment on it for sure. But
or whether there's a lack of communication between them and the police, for example, which I sometimes see regularly.
Or the police force being too, you know, over-resourced, and they've not got enough resources. They're out here, there, and everywhere.
And this stems back to funding.
Yeah, it all goes back to funding. So I think that the main point that we've picked up on there is definitely funding. And, you know, we've talked about how your cases can be affected. You just gave one example, you know, delay in response time. Let's work on the presumption that that is due to a funding issue or due to staff shortages or whatever. So it's like it all comes back to the funding, and obviously David Lammy's new proposal to scrap the jury trials,
which is ludicrous.
Yeah. What do you think of that?
If anything, the people that are, it's the juries that are kept waiting.
Of course, yeah.
Like,
how many times
constantly
they can't get the trials on, you know, so that I've seen in judge marshalling, because there's a judge is listening to one trial and having to overlap it with another, you know.
Well, it's exactly. And also, if, for example, there's a legal issue or disclosure issue, etc., then the jury are sat, you could say, oh, we'll send you out for half an hour and we'll come back. That could turn into 3 hours.
Home, yeah, of course.
Because, you know, things happen, things crop up. Also, if they were to scrap jury trials, I don't really know how that would work, because obviously once a judge sends their jury out, they can then crack on with the next trial or the next sentence or the next case.
How can the judge send themselves out and crack on another?
They can't. They're going to have to retire themselves, write out their judgment, their reasonings for their verdict. That could take, depending on the length of the trial, the complexity of the trial or the case, etc. That could take days. What, and you have a court that's not sitting.
And also,
it's wholly unrealistic.
Yeah, and off the back of that as well, one of the points that I raised, because I got asked one of these questions in pupillage, in one of my pupillage applications, and my response was also progression for junior counsel. How are junior counsel supposed to get exposure to jury trials if it's then reserved to, obviously, of course, respectfully, senior counsel or definitely high levels of counsel within chambers, who also need the work, of course, and they need the practice to continue flowing? Then how are the pupils and people within 2 or 3 years call supposed to get exposure to more in-depth scenarios of advocacy when they can't even get their hands on it because the jury trials are gone and they're only reserved for murder, attempted rape, rape and manslaughter? Sorry, not attempted rape, attempted murder and manslaughter.
I mean, I don't really know whether that'll come into fruition, if I'm completely honest.
I think David Lammy's going to go back on his little words.
I really hope so, but I just can't. I think I just can't see it happen. I really don't. And judges will need training as well. And they're not juries.
Judges as well, where are they supposed to pluck this time from? You know, they're gonna have to do all of the evidence, and then
evenings prepping cases
for
the
next,
following
of
day.
course, yeah. They're going to be prepping on the same for the same.
It's so
Yeah.
unfair on
It's
every
horrendous.
level. It's
The
incredibly unfair.
and I said that in one of my application answers as well. Like the strain that will put on the judiciary will be absolutely
The
phenomenal.
strain that they already have.
Yeah, that they've already got, and
yeah.
also as well, the distaste in bringing barristers to the profession. Like if barristers are listening to this, and watching what's going on, and then maybe aspiring barristers are listening to this, and they're in university and they're wanting to pursue a career at the bar, the criminal bar particularly, and then they're looking at all of this that's going on in the news, they might think, oh my goodness, I'll go into commercial. And then you're losing talent really left, right, and centre because so many people might think
that's one of the reasons for the backlog as well, like lack of available counsel.
Yeah, of course.
So obviously my view, and I think many other people's views, is jury trials are not the reason for the backlog.
It's funding.
If anything, they are the ones that are continuously kept waiting.
Yeah.
And I do not envy jurors whatsoever. Obviously, they do a great service,
to the country, of course,
they
to
do.
the community, yeah.
But they could be at work, they could be, if they're a full-time mom, they could be with a child, etc. Do you know what I mean? And then they could be sat waiting in the Crown Court building for 5 hours. Do you know, it's
there's a lot, of course.
And David Lammy used to be a lawyer.
I know, and then I find that pretty mind-blowing.
Maybe it was back in the day when the system actually worked properly.
But also, as well, it's like the conditions of some of the courts up and down the country is absolutely diabolical.
There's so many courts
can't even produce defendants, some of them, because the transport facilitation that they use.
Exactly.
They haven't got enough trucks, I'm guessing, or vehicles to transport the defendants and then produce them.
Yeah.
So it's like there's so many things. Some of the defendants can't be held in the cells downstairs of the courts because the court's too cold. And that's what I've read on, just...
There's multiple court centres as well within the country that are closed and not fit for purpose. But like I say, all stems out of funding. That's the top bottom of it.
Thank you so much for your insight in that, actually, and thank you for giving a real practical perspective on from somebody who's actually living in this every single day and facing these challenges. And Abby, I'd just like to say thank you so much for joining me on my podcast.
It's been fun. I've enjoyed it.
Have you enjoyed it? I'm so glad, and I'm honestly so honoured to have interviewed you. You've brought so much great advice and so much invaluable knowledge. I'm really, really happy to have had you as my first in-person guest. No matter how crazy you are. Stay crazy every day. But no, thank you honestly so much, and I hope everybody enjoyed the podcast episode. Yes. Definitely a little bit of chaos in there, but listen, it's all about being authentic and
stay authentic, guys,
and being yourself at the bar and in any sort of legal profession.
Just life in general.
And life in general as well, absolutely. But no, thank you all so much for watching, and thanks for the ongoing support as well. And thank you to Abby. And Abby, you've got LinkedIn as well.
I do.
So if anybody would like to connect with you on LinkedIn,
of course,
you're more than happy for that.
100%. Yeah.
Okay, brilliant. Thanks so much for watching, everybody, and take care. Bye.